Hi everyone, this is the online tutorial for BOP and international trade. Now, the first question is, what are the categories of the international transactions in the balance of payments? So this account is from your notes. It shows you the balance of payments. Yeah, the current account, which consists of the merchandise trade balance, the actual goods, tangible goods and goods balance, and then the services. Okay, and then your capital account inflow outflow, and then there will be an overall balance. Okay, so it asks for the categories of international transactions and then give an example each. So there's basically three categories: your current account, capital account, and then official reserve transaction account. Okay. Now the third one is mainly a balancing account. So if 1 and 2 has a surplus, it goes into your reserves. If 1 and 2 together has a deficit, then got to find some way of financing it. Okay. So current account, you have import export of goods and services, and then there could be transfer payments across countries when, for example, foreign workers send money back home. All right. So this will fall under your current account. Capital account, short-term capital flows, when people come in, for example, put some money into your banks as a short-term deposit. All right. Now, long-term capital flows exist in the form of foreign direct investment. What are foreign direct investment? Some of you put this in your project. Is investment in your country by foreign companies or government where they invest long-term, for example, into your infrastructure like MRT lines, like roads, bridges, things like that. Okay. Now, explain how a country can finance a deficit in a balance of payment. Now, with a BOP deficit, the government will have to draw from official reserves. That means you pay off with your reserve first, or you borrow from foreign central banks. Now, this part is very similar to fiscal policy. Okay, that means how to finance a deficit in fiscal policy. You try to finance from reserve first. If there's no money there, then you borrow from other countries. Now, question 2 is a calculation question. Based on all these numbers, A says, since country A has an absolute advantage with respect to country B, let's see whether it really has an absolute advantage or not. These are two countries, A and B, and these are the output per 1 unit of resource. So country A can produce, with 1 unit of resource, they can produce 150 TVs or 150 watches. Okay. Country B can produce either 100 television or 80 watches. Okay, so country A can produce more of TV and more of watches. Okay, now so we can confirm that country A has an absolute advantage with respect to country B. All right, would trade still be mutually beneficial? Why? All right, will still be, all right, because we use the law of comparative advantage to measure. So even if one country is more efficient in production of both goods, the opportunity cost will always be different. Okay, when it's different, trade will still be mutually beneficial. All right, we have done some calculations shown to you in the lecture. Yeah. Now, so we calculate the opportunity cost of producing TV for each country. All right, to see which country has a comparative advantage. All right. Now, note in the earlier part of the question, country A has an absolute advantage in both goods. Okay, so now we're calculating comparative advantage. Now, follow the steps in the lecture. Okay, now first find out what product they want you to look at. TV. Okay, comparative advantage in the production of TV. All right, so we want to know when I produce one TV, how many watches do I have to give up? Okay, now so to calculate that, we convert the TV numbers to 1. All right. Now, when we do division on one side, we must do for the other side. All right. You can tell for country A is a pretty straightforward. It's a ratio of 1:1. So whenever you produce one TV, you give up one watch. Now for country B, to get one TV, you divide by 100, and therefore you must divide by 100 on the other side. So country B's opportunity cost for producing one TV is actually 0.8 watch. Okay, so country B has a comparative advantage because all these are cost amount, opportunity cost amount. So the lower the better. So country B gives out less watch when they produce TV. Okay. Now similarly, let's take a look at watch. When we want to look at the product, we want to see what is the opportunity cost of producing one watch for each of the country. Okay. So we must reduce numbers to 1 to look at the equivalent on the other side. Country A is again straightforward, 1:1. So to produce 1 watch, country A give out 1 TV. Okay. Now for country B, when they want to produce 1 watch, we divide by 80, and then divide by 80 on the other side. They give out 1.25 TV. Okay. So country A now has a comparative advantage in the production of watches because they gave out less TV. They only need to sacrifice 1 TV when they make 1 watch, whereas country B has to sacrifice 1.25 TV. Okay, so the smaller number counts, okay, because these are costs, so the lower the cost, the better. So country A has a comparative advantage in the production of watches. Now, therefore, which goods should each country specialize in? Now, you go by your comparative advantage, okay? So country A should specialize in watch production, and country B should specialize in TV. Now, question 3 is on trade restriction using a tariff or a quota. Okay, you must know how to differentiate and draw the 2 diagrams. If you're not sure, please refer back to the lecture again. Now, should the government impose a tariff or quota if they want to reduce the quantity to a definite amount? Okay. Now, you should learn from your lecture that to restrict trade to a definite amount, we use a quota. All right, we use a quota. So a quota is more effective as it directly restricts the amount of imports. So original equilibrium quantity is here, but after imposition of a quota, it of course has to be lesser, so it's at Q. So this is your new supply curve. All right, your new supply curve. So equilibrium quantity falls to the quota quantity at Q, and equilibrium price therefore goes up to P2. Now the question goes on to ask us, what measure was imposed by the EU to reduce the amount of bioethanol imports from the US? So using the diagram illustrate the impact on the equilibrium price and quantity of US bioethanol in the EU. Okay, so the EU imposed a tariff on the bioethanol products from the US. Okay, so this supply, original supply, is a supply of bioethanol products from the US. This is in EU. Okay, so after the imposition of the tariff, all right, supply curve shift to the left. The vertical distance is the size of the tariff per unit. All right, so the equilibrium point is now here, where your price, equilibrium price, would have gone up, your equilibrium quantity would have fallen. Okay, now like what we mentioned, the vertical distance is the size of the tariff per unit. Okay, so to know the whole tariff revenue times the quantity, so this whole tariff revenue goes to the government. Okay, so supply of imports falls, all right, to SM plus tariff, and equilibrium price goes up, equilibrium quantity falls. So this is the total revenue earned by the government. Now, following the anti-dumping measure, evaluate if the parties in the table below gain or loss and provide the reason why. So after EU imposed the tariff on bioethanol imports coming in from the US, let's take a look. Who gained and who lost? Now, the bioethanol producers in the US, of course, lost, okay, because their products going to Europe is now taxed, all right, by the tariff. So now they cannot export as much because lesser people will buy from them, because now their products are more expensive after the imposition of the tariff. All right. Now, for bioethanol producers in Europe, that means the local European producers, they gain, okay, because comparatively their product is now more price competitive. All right, because their competitors' American products are now more expensive as a result of the tariff. All right, so this will allow them to be more competitive, and the demand for local European bioethanol will go up. So good for them. All right. Now the consumers, however, they lost because they prefer the American one as it was cheaper. Now because the American import is made artificially more expensive as a result of the tariff, European consumers now, either they buy the more expensive American or they buy the used to be expensive European product. Either way, they lose out. Now they got to pay more for their bioethanol. Okay. Now, what are the other measures that can be used by the EU? We mentioned some other measures in the lecture, like VER. Okay, is a voluntary export restraint. All right, they control their own exports. That means the US can restrain themselves from exporting to the EU. All right, or you can use a quota. Okay, now these measures can invite retaliation. Okay, that means you can be pressured to use a VER on yourself next time, or they can impose a quota or a tariff on your exports. Okay, so measures to restrict trade often can invite retaliation. Huh? Now let's take a look at MCQ questions. Huh? Now the question one, what does the balance of payment account record? Okay, obviously record the international trading, investment, which is the capital inflow outflow, borrowing and lending, okay, of a country. All right. All the other answers are wrong. Flow of goods only, no. Flow of human, no. Official transactions only, no. Okay. So international trading, which is your current account, investment, borrowing and lending is your capital account. Okay. Now, question two, if there's more capital inflow into US and outflow, then the country will be experiencing in the capital account, more money is flowing in than flowing out. So there'll be a surplus in the capital account. Now, why is there an increase in foreign ownership of US resources? Because all this money flowing into a capital account is for a reason. They're going into the US to invest in US, maybe properties or other resources. Okay, so that's why the capital account has a surplus from all this money coming in. Okay, so the foreign ownership of US resources increases. Question 3. The official reserve transaction account records, okay, B is the correct answer, the net increase or decrease in a country's holdings of foreign currencies. Now, what is this definition? A holding of foreign currency. This is actually the country's foreign reserves, the savings of a country. Okay, so the official transaction account record the reserves movements, whether there's more reserves from the surplus or whether it needs to be used to finance any deficit. Okay, so that is under the official reserve transaction account. All right, it's like a balancing account. All right, it's meant to finance shortfalls and to increase with any surplus. All right, so B is the correct answer. For question 4, an increase in current account deficit. That means your goods and services are in deficit. All other things remaining constant will, A is the correct answer, decrease the country's international reserves. That means you have to dig up into your reserves, all right, to pay for this current account deficit. Remember, we are holding other things constant, so we assume that your capital account balance doesn't change. All right. So with this deficit, you have to take out from your reserves to pay for them. All right. All the other options are wrong. Okay. Question 5. Colombia produces coffee with less labor now and land than any other country. It therefore surely has a correct answer would be absolute advantage. Okay, that means it can produce more coffee than any other country. So based on quantity alone, okay, Colombia has an absolute advantage. Okay, now it cannot be a comparative advantage here because we have no other product to compare with. Okay, and remember the other product is needed because we need to measure opportunity cost. Okay, so just with absolute quantity of the production of this product, we can say for sure that this country has an absolute advantage in coffee production. Alright, question 6. If a country does not have an absolute advantage in producing both goods, we have an example earlier, right, in the tutorial question, whereby in the production of TV and a watch, okay, one country can produce more or both over the other country, okay, but even then, when you work out the opportunity cost, okay, it can only have a comparative advantage in one good, okay, so even though it can produce more of both, or you don't, or you produce less of both, you will still have a comparative advantage in one good following our calculation. Now we have an example of a calculation here. Okay, we have two countries, US versus Japan, and then numbers that they can produce with 1 unit of resource. Okay, now few options here. Let's go through the working. Let's calculate the comparative advantage for the countries. Why? Because you see that US has the absolute disadvantage, right? It can produce less of both products compared to Japan. Okay, so let's calculate the comparative advantage. Let's calculate how much is the opportunity cost for 1 unit of wheat, okay, for both countries. So what's the opportunity cost of 1 unit of wheat? So we convert the number to 1, okay, we do the same division for the other side, okay. So to get the 1 wheat, we divide by 3, so cars divide by 3, the same for Japan. So this is what we get. Now the US, for 1 unit of wheat, they give up 0.33 cars. Okay, Japan, for 1 unit of wheat, they give up 0.75 units of cars. Okay, so obviously US can produce wheat with a lower opportunity cost. So US has a comparative advantage in wheat production. Okay, because they can do this with lesser opportunity cost. Any options here? No. Let's calculate the opportunity cost for producing 1 unit of cars. Now to produce 1 car, okay, US got to give up 3 divided by 2. That's how you get 1 car. So you divide by 2 on the other side. So US has to give up 3 over 2 units of wheat. And then same for Japan, 8 over 6 units. Answer following up. Okay. So these are the wheat that it has to give up when it produces 1 car. Alright, so it's obvious that Japan gives out less wheat. They only give out 1.3 units of wheat versus US who got to give out 1.5 units of wheat. So the answer is option 3. Japan has a comparative advantage over US in the production of cars because they can produce with lesser opportunity costs. Okay, question 8. Suppose England and France are engaged in the production of both wine and cheese, and if France has a comparative advantage in the production of wine, then this country, okay, what's a comparative advantage? That means they have a lower opportunity cost for the production of wine, which means that it should specialize or focus in producing that and then trade with other countries. Okay, so comparative advantage means that it's a lower opportunity cost for that product. Okay, so the theory encourages countries with comparative advantage in that product to specialize and then trade with other countries. Okay, now how will the price and quantity imported be affected when the government impose a tariff on imported substances? So now it's on tariff, on a tariff. So obviously you saw in the earlier diagram, okay, you can check again your notes. When a tariff is imposed, the supply curve shifts to the left, okay? So price will go up and the quantity imported will go down. Alright, so option B. Last question, what advantage to the country of imposing a tariff over imports? Now this is the key difference between a tariff and a quota, is that the government receives the tariff revenue, okay, because the tariff is a tax, so it goes to the government. When you impose a quota, the importer will benefit. Alright, so for the government to benefit, okay, impose a tariff. So this answer is A. Okay, this is the end of the online tutorial for BOP and international trade. This is also the last topic for macroeconomics. There will be a revision lecture in the last week of the semester. Make sure you attend. Thanks for keeping me company online. All the best for exams. Bye.